Meanwhile, you do have real issues going on, shall I say. You might be looking at a letter if you're watching this on camera. If you're not watching it on camera, you can join us over on YouTube or on Facebook where we are live. If you're watching there or listening on Apple Podcasts, I commend you for it. And I would love everybody who is watching on Facebook and on YouTube to join us over on the Apple Podcast, the full audio version of the show. Anyway, you see a letter that is sent to Devin Archer. It's from the then Vice President of the United States of America, that would be Joe Biden. And it reads, I apologize for not getting a chance to talk to you at the luncheon yesterday. I was having trouble getting away from hosting President Hugh. I hope I get a chance to see you again soon with Hunter. I hope you enjoyed the lunch. Thank you for coming. Sincerely, Joe Biden Jr. Happy you guys are together, he writes in handwriting. So that's a little bit of an issue in that Joe Biden sort of was pretending or telling everyone that he knew nothing about his son's business, nothing at all. Well, he knew enough to actually bother sending a letter to the guy who was his associate to say, hey, like, I'm so psyched that you guys are working together. And then it came forward, thanks to the testimony, and here's some of it right here, before the House Oversight Committee, that in fact, Joe Biden would call up in those nice little dinners that they would have with clients and say, hey, how you doing, son? That kind of thing. Apparently, there was no quote unquote direct sort of strategic involvement from Joe Biden, according to Devin Archer. But, that's not what you needed after all. What you needed was access. Let's not kid each other. These countries all around the world, what do you think they wanted? They wanted access, because the U.S. kind of bankrolls the rest of the world. And so in getting this access, they needed accessibility, right, to the vice president, especially in the case of Ukraine, since he was controlling the purse strings. It was all about access, as Devin Archer so articulated to Tucker Carlson in a recent interview. Listen to this.
Did he have a sophisticated understanding of regulation, do you think?
I think that he led a team that had a sophisticated...
Because I lived in Washington a long time, around a lot of regulation. Also a very complex area.
Absolutely. I think you got to be an expert in knowing the guy, and he was the guy that was the expert in knowing the guy.
He was an expert in knowing the guy.
Right.
And who was the guy he knew?
Well, he knew a lot of people, but obviously there was some familiar, his brother, his father, some of his father's siblings. So he knew a lot of people. And obviously I know you're pointing to, the father being the key relationship.
In other words, he knew a guy. He knew a guy who knew a guy. Actually, no, he knew the guy. He knew the guy who was controlling the purse strings. And this is the concern, right? Because Hunter Biden gets his plum gig, $83,000, a month. $83,000 a month, and he's on the board of Burisma, an energy company, a natural gas company in Ukraine. He doesn't really know anything about the industry. He has a pretty checkered past, right, with the drug use, etc. And he and his associate, that would be Devin Archer that you just saw, they both get $83,000 a month gigs. Pretty sweet. And so why? Well, this was presumably for some kind of access. The question then becomes, did Joe Biden ever act on the access? And that is what the House Oversight Committee is trying to figure out. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. You get the tax stuff galore, which is just mind-blowing. The idea that you set up 20 different LLCs shortly after Joe Biden becomes vice president of the United States. That's problematic in and of itself, with the money going to various family members. That's obviously of concern. You had 170 suspicious activity reports that were reported to the Treasury Department by the banks that were managing all of this. Listen, this is weird stuff within the tax issue itself, but also within the issue of accessibility. That's problematic. And hey, Trump called it back in 2020.
It's an open discussion, please.
No, it's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the vice president answer.
Discredited.
Did Burisma pay him $183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr. President,
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr. President, let him answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
By who? The media.
Actually, it turns out it's actually been rather credited now. Yes, he was making $83,000 a month. And whether the then aspirational president was willing to admit that or not, well, again, lying? Is this misinformation? Can someone go after him for that? This is what politicians do. Unfortunately, it is the world in which we live. There are a lot of unanswered questions here, and I think that there is some onus here on both parties to get to the bottom of it. Hey everyone, Trish Regan here. If you enjoyed that clip, please do me the favor of subscribing to the channel. Just hit that little subscribe button right over there. Did I do that right? Not quite, but you know where it is. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so that you get the alerts, and I'll see you back on the show.